Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Pastor Eric Brown with Daily Manna for your soul. Happy Monday to you. I pray the Lord is blessing you real good right now. Look, just want to bring you a word of encouragement, something to help you along your way. And today that word is going through will lead to your breakthrough. Oh, I'm here to tell you, if you look around this world today, you can conclude that we're going through, we're faced with inflation at high rates, food prices at high rates, gas prices at high rates. We're faced with social unrest, racial unrest. We're faced with the pandemic, and we've been in the pandemic for a couple of years, and everything that it brings, the different variants, and got us still wearing masks and all these other things that we have to be so aware of. Can't gather like we used to. Can I tell you, we are going through. But we as believers in Jesus Christ understand this, that when we're going through, that's only leading to our breakthrough. I'm reminded of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was a young man that went through. Joseph was a young man that God began to call him, and God began to share with him some dreams and visions of what he was going to do and who he was going to be at an early age. But when Joseph would share those things, it caused his brothers to be angry with him. That started him on a downward spiral of some 25 years of going through. You know, his brother started it off by throwing him in a pit. I'm here to tell you, he was going through. Even though they pulled him out of the pit, they sold him into slavery. He was going through. He was in a man by the name of Potiphar's house, and even though he was in Potiphar's house, and even though he was a captive, Joseph had gifts and talents. Joseph had a gift for stewardship, and it seemed like everything he touched, God blessed, because God was still favoring him even while he was in captivity. But don't you know, he was still going through, because the enemy saw that, and the enemy put it in Potiphar's wife's head that she wanted to lay with Joseph, and Joseph wasn't having nothing to do with that. Joseph still knew who he was and whose he was, and he refused. But what she did when she was spurned was to tell a lie on him and get him thrown in jail. So now he's gone from being a slave in Potiphar's house to being thrown in jail, where they were going to leave him for all of his days. But I'm here to tell you, even though he was in there, he still never forgot who he was, and whose he was. He still never forgot his relationship with God. He never lost spiritual consciousness. He continued to practice. He continued to honor. He continued to serve God even in the midst of his captivity, even while he was going through. Let that be a lesson. No matter what we're going through, we don't change up on who we are serving. We serve the Most High and living God. We give glory to his name. We praise Jesus, and we thank God. And we thank God in the midst of even the storms of captivity. We thank God even while we're going through. And this is what Joseph did, because Joseph was still able to maintain his relationship. He was still able to use his gifts, and use his gifts he did. Because while Joseph was in jail, Joseph was still interpreting dreams, and he was still counseling people. And don't you know, the Bible lets us know that a man's gift will make room for him, because sure enough, one of the inmates that he interpreted a dream for was the butler that used to be in the king's palace. He was in jail now, but the dream that he had, and Joseph interpreted, let him know that you're going to be back in the good graces of Pharaoh, and you're going to be back in Pharaoh's palace. And when you get back in Pharaoh's palace, don't forget about me. Oh, I'm here to tell you, one day Pharaoh had a dream that nobody could interpret. Oh, he brought it to his soothsayers and his astrologers, and they couldn't do nothing with it. But the butler that Joseph had interpreted a dream for so many years before, he remembered Joseph, and he told Pharaoh about Joseph, and Pharaoh brought Joseph before him and told him the dream. And not only did Joseph interpret the dream, but Joseph gave him a solution for the dream. The interpretation of the dream was there were 7 cows that came out of the water, and these cows were healthy, and they represented 7 good years. But then there were 7 cows that came out of the water that were drawn up and skinny and poor looking, and that represented 7 years of famine. Joseph told the dream, then he told a solution for the dream, how to take the years of plenty and stockpile and create storehouses all over Egypt. So not only would the Egyptians have food, but they would be in a position where they could sell food to other people. Somebody needs to get that. Joseph gave them the interpretation of the dream and the solution, to the effect that Pharaoh was so impressed that he said, I'm going to bring you out of prison and put you as the number 2 person in my country. You only answer to me. You can have the run of the land, do what you need to do, make this thing happen. Oh, I'm here to tell you, won't God do it? Joseph went from going through to his breakthrough. His breakthrough was to be the number 2 person in the country. And I'm here to tell you, God is so good. I want you to be encouraged about that, but that ain't all the story, because this is something else that God has done. When God had began to give Joseph dreams from the beginning, and those dreams that his family members did not understand, and those dreams that caused his family members to put him on this road of going through, and they left him and thought that he had died. They didn't know what had happened to him, but God knew exactly where he was. God had him in Egypt for such a time as this, because that famine, not only did it affect Egypt, but it affected Canaan. Canaan is where Joseph's family was. They were there in Canaan starving. They were about to die, and God couldn't allow the bloodline to die out, because that bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that bloodline was going to produce the Christ child. That was going to produce the Savior of the world. God couldn't let that bloodline die, so he had Joseph in place. Even though Joseph was going through, Joseph's breakthrough came at the right time and right place, that when his brothers came seeking food, they had to go to the number 2 person in the country. The number 2 person in the country was Joseph. They didn't recognize Joseph, but Joseph recognized them. But Joseph had love in his heart for him. And when he revealed himself to him, he said, yeah, you took me through, but I got my breakthrough, because what you meant for my evil, God meant for my good. I want somebody to be encouraged. Somebody ought to be shouting on that right now. What the enemy has meant for your evil, God is going to use it for your good. Where the enemy had you going through, where people had you going through, where the storms of life had you going through, when the winds and the waves were beating against your boat, when the sun was beating down on your back, or when you were dealing with backbiters and haters and naysayers and folk talking about you, when you was dealing with all of that going through, God still had a breakthrough for you. And your breakthrough, they're going to be able to see that God was using you all the time. And you're going to end up being a blessing for them that despitefully use you. Yeah, weeping may endure for a night, but that joy sure enough come in the morning. That joy is going to show up in the form of your breakthrough. Look, you have an awesome day. You be encouraged. You keep on walking for the Lord. You keep on holding on to God's unchanging hand. You keep on letting God use you, and God is going to bring you through. Have an awesome day. Be blessed of the Lord. Peace.